Ask people what they picture when they picture retirement, and sooner or later, there's water in the answer. A dock, a slow morning, coffee looking out at something that moves. The ocean version of that dream now costs $500,000 and a hurricane deductible. The lake version is alive and well and criminally underpriced. So today, 20 lake towns across America that are just about perfect for retirement. Real towns on real water. Every home value pulled live from Zillow this week. Most of them between $170,000 and $400,000. Each one checked for the thing lake lists always forget, where the doctor is. We're counting all 20 down to number 1, a town on an emerald green mountain lake where the hospital is in town, the college calendar is 15 minutes away, and homes still go pending in 9 days. Let's see them. In 1968, a chainsaw millionaire named Robert McCulloch bought the London Bridge. The actual one. Granite, 1831, sinking slowly into the Thames, and the City of London sold it to him for $2.46 million, at which point he had it taken apart, every block numbered, shipped through the Panama Canal, trucked into the Arizona desert, and rebuilt over a channel of the Colorado River at a town he was inventing from nothing. That town is Lake Havasu City. The bridge still stands. You can walk across it tonight. And the whole story tells you exactly what kind of place this is. A city that simply decided the desert deserved a lakefront resort and built one. The lake itself is 45 miles of Colorado River backed up blue against red rock. And the retirement case writes itself. Boating and fishing 12 months a year, 400 miles of shoreline coves, and this list's quiet superpower, winter that never shows up. January afternoons run in the upper 60s while every other town in this countdown is wearing a coat. Snowbirds figured this out decades ago and thousands never flew home. The town leans into its own strangeness with a collection nobody expects. More than 25 scale replicas of famous lighthouses stand along the shoreline, built by a local club, one of the largest such collections anywhere. And the English village at the bridge's foot keeps the theme going with shops and a waterfront walk. Winter is the social season here. The marinas fill, the pickleball courts wait for morning shade, and the calendar runs boat parades and car shows straight through the months the rest of this list spends indoors. Zillow has the typical home at $468,000, easing about 1% this year. The most expensive address on this countdown, which is why it opens the show. If the math works here, everything below is a discount. Havasu Regional Medical Center is a full hospital right in town. No small thing 150 miles from Phoenix. The honest sunburned summer is the bill for that January. 110-degree stretches are normal, and residents live indoors by 2 p.m. And spring break turns the channel into a floating party you'll want a calendar warning for. What you get is England's oldest export, America's warmest lake winter, and a town too young to have ever learned the word ordinary. One more practical line for the Westerners watching: Las Vegas sits 2.5 hours north, and its airport handles the flights the grandkids arrive on, which makes this the rare remote-feeling lake town with a major hub inside an afternoon's drive. Laconia on a map, and the water is winning. The town threads between 3 lakes, Winnisquam on one side, Little Opeshie in the middle, and on the other, the giant, Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire's inland sea, 21 miles long, dotted with over 250 islands, and ringed by the White Mountain standing in the distance like a postcard that never changes. Laconia is the capital of what New Hampshire simply calls the Lakes region, and it earns the title. Weir's Beach on the Winnipesaukee shore keeps a wooden boardwalk, a drive-in theater still running, and the Mount Washington, a 230-foot cruise ship that has worked this lake in one form or another since 1872. Dinner cruises at sunset. Foliage cruises in October. The Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion books national country and rock acts all summer, the kind of amenity lake towns half this size can only envy. And the fishing runs landlocked salmon and lake trout through water clean enough to drink the view of. The hills add their own layer. The Belknap Range rises right behind town with trail networks locals hike before lunch. Gunstock Mountain runs skiing 15 minutes away with a scenic lift that turns into a foliage ride each fall. And if the setting feels like a movie, it has been one. The Squam Lakes one valley over played the water in On Golden Pond, and the whole region still carries that exact light. Zillow has the typical home at $448,000, up around 2%. premium money, though everything here is priced against Boston buyers 2 hours south, and by their math, it's a bargain. Concord Hospital operates its Laconia campus right in town, full emergency room included. Now, the honest forecast, and there are two of them. This is New Hampshire. Winter is real. Months of it. Snow shovels are not decorative here. And every June, the oldest motorcycle rally in America, running since 1916, brings hundreds of thousands of bikes to town for a week that residents either love, leave for, or earplug through. The other 51 weeks, you live between 3 lakes with a hospital down the street and a mountain range on the horizon. And the 4-season arc honestly earns the postcard. October turns the shoreline maples to fire above blue water, the kind of 2-week stretch that fills every inn in the region and reminds you why New England charges what it charges. Chicago burned in 1871, its millionaires needed somewhere to wait out the rebuild, and they chose a spring-fed lake 70 miles north across the Wisconsin line. They never really left. The Wrigleys, the Schwinns, the Maytags. Name a brand from your childhood and its family probably built a mansion on Geneva Lake. And for a century and a half, this town has been the Midwest's answer to Newport, Rhode Island. Grand estates, ringing water so clear it shades toward Caribbean green on sunny days. Here's the part that makes it belong on a retirement list instead of a museum tour. A public footpath runs the entire 21-mile shoreline through the front lawns of every one of those mansions, a right-of-way older than the estates themselves that the millionaires have never been able to close. So your daily walk can pass Gilded Age gardens the owners still trim for your viewing. The town plays other hits too. The mail here has been delivered by boat since 1916, with mail jumpers leaping from the moving deck to the docks and back, a summer spectacle people line up to watch. And every February, the town hosts the National Snow Sculpting Championship, which tells you honestly that winter here is both real and embraced. History buffs get a bonus stop in neighboring Williams Bay. The century-old Yerkes Observatory, birthplace of modern astrophysics where a young Carl Sagan studied, has reopened for tours and events. And back in town, the 1930s Riviera Ballroom still anchors the lakefront with concerts and dances over the water. Zillow has the typical home at $420,000, up close to 5% this year, Chicago demand keeping the floor firm. The medical file is the one soft spot. Clinics operate in town, but the full hospital is Aurora's campus in Elkhorn, about 15 minutes west. That drive is part of the deal. And a quick toll before the path continues. Subscribing to this channel works like that Shore Path, completely free, legally yours, and it walks you past million-dollar views every single week. Next, the town where a planned community figured out the lake retirement formula on purpose. Most towns on this list stumbled into being good for retirement. This one was engineered for it. On the South Carolina shore of Lake Thurmond, 71,000 acres of Army Corps water, also called Clark's Hill, one of the biggest lakes east of the Mississippi, sits Savannah Lakes Village, a planned lakeside community built around exactly the checklist you're watching this video for. 2 championship golf courses, a marina, a recreation center with indoor pools and pickleball, miles of shoreline trails, and thousands of residents who mostly arrived the same way you would: retired, researched, and done with winter driveways. Zillow tracks the village on its own page and has the typical home at $420,000, up around 2% this year. 5 minutes away sits the town that anchors it, McCormick. And McCormick is no invented backdrop. It's a gold town, literally. William Dorn struck gold here before the Civil War, and the old mine shafts still run underneath Main Street. You can tour the Dorn Mill Complex, and the Arts Council keeps galleries and classes running in the historic Katura Hotel. Between the village and the town, the social infrastructure question answers itself. The public lands sweeten the deal further. The village runs on its own property owners association, with clubs stacked deep. Boating, gardening, veterans, gritch, a built-in social directory most transplants take months to assemble elsewhere. And Hickory Knob State Resort Park sits just up the shore, South Carolina's only resort state park, with its own golf course, lodge, and lakeside cabins that make visiting family a solved problem. And Baker Creek State Park adds miles of lakeside biking trails 5 minutes from the village gates. All of it wrapped in the long quiet of a shoreline the Army Corps keeps mostly undeveloped forever. The honest assay report comes down to medicine. McCormick has clinics for the everyday, but the full hospital is self-regional in Greenwood, a 35 to 40-minute drive. And that distance is the real price of 71,000 quiet acres. Summer brings Carolina heat, and the lake occasionally brings core drawdowns that stretch the beach. What this address buys is rare on this countdown, a retirement that arrives pre-assembled, neighbors included, with a gold mine under the grocery run. The pink granite dome of the Texas state capitol, the whole massive thing, came out of the ground here. Granite Mountain still stands at the edge of Marble Falls. They've been quarrying it since the 1880s, and that stubborn granite energy runs through the whole town. Marble Falls sits on the chain Texans call the Highland Lakes. 6 lakes stair-stepping down the Colorado River through hill country, with Lake Marble Falls right against downtown and giants like LBJ and Buchanan minutes upstream, which means a boat owner here never runs out of new water and a porch owner never runs out of view. The town itself outperforms its size. A walkable main street of shops and barbecue, a lakeside park hosting festivals, and the drag boat races that turn the water into a stadium each summer. Hill country wineries within an easy drive, and every spring the bluebonnets detonate across the surrounding hills and turn the highway shoulders into photography studios. One institution deserves its own sentence. The Bluebonnet Cafe has been serving pie since 1929 and runs an actual daily pie happy hour. And if that doesn't factor into your relocation math, we're different people. The state parks stack up within 15 minutes. Inks Lake with its granite shelves and swimming coves, and Longhorn Cavern, a limestone cave system you tour through, rooms once used as a Prohibition dance hall, while November brings the Walkway of Lights when the lakeside park glows with 2 million bulbs reflected in the water, and the whole town walks it nightly. Zillow has a typical home at $408,000, down about 3% this year. Hill country cooling in the buyer's favor. The healthcare answer is the strongest in this price band. Baylor Scott & White operates a full hospital right in town, heart care included. The Honest Granite Chip. Texas summer runs 100 degrees for weeks. Austin sprawl creeps closer every year and brings weekend lake traffic with it. And waterfront specifically will cost far more than the town's typical number. Everything else, the pie included, is exactly as advertised. There's a bowl in the far north Georgia mountains where a 7,000-acre lake mirrors the Appalachians so cleanly that photographers call it the crown jewel of the region. And the little town curled against its shore is Hiawassee. Lake Chatuge is the postcard, mountain water wrapping around peninsulas of pine, kayaks gliding past herons in the morning fog. But the reason retirees specifically know this town of roughly 1,000 people is sound. The Georgia Mountain Fairgrounds sit right on the lake shore, and their Anderson Music Hall, a barn of a venue seating nearly 3,000, books country and gospel legends year-round, plus the Georgia Mountain Fair itself, a tradition since 1950, running music, crafts, and pioneer demonstrations every summer, which means this tiny mountain town has a concert calendar cities of 50,000 would trade for. Hamilton Gardens next door holds one of Georgia's great rhododendron collections, blooming purple down to the water every spring. And Brasstown Bald, the state's highest peak, stands a half-hour away with a viewing deck that sees 4 states on a clear day. The elevation is the quiet gift. The lake sits at 1,900 feet, which shaves the worst edge off Georgia's summer. Evenings cool enough for a porch blanket in July. And Bell Mountain above town offers a drive-up overlook where the whole lake spreads out beneath you, a view that ends most house hunting debates on the spot. Zillow has the typical home at $404,000, flat over the past year, mountain lake pricing that reflects 2 decades of quiet discovery. And the medical answer beats what a town this size has any right to. Chatuge Regional Hospital operates right in Hiawassee, small but real, with the larger Union General campus over the ridge in Blairsville. The Honest Fog Bank. This is remote mountain country. Atlanta is 2 hours. Winter brings real cold and the occasional ice that makes those mountain roads interesting. And if a 1,000-person town sounds small in February, It is. The Trade is a lake the color of the sky, legends singing on its shore, and a hospital you can see from the fairground gates. The fastest man on Earth once lived at the foot of this lake. In 1907, a Hammond Sport bicycle mechanic named Glenn Curtis strapped himself to a motorcycle he built and hit 136 miles an hour on a Florida beach, a speed no human had ever reached. And then he got bored of the ground entirely and became one of the fathers of American aviation, flying the Junebug over local vineyards in 1908 and building the planes that taught the Navy to fly. The Curtis Museum in town keeps his motorcycles, flying boats, and beautiful madness on display, and the vineyards he flew over are the town's other empire. Hammond Sport sits at the southern tip of Keuka Lake, the Crooked Lake, the only one of the Finger Lakes shaped like a Y, and its slopes grow some of the East Coast's most respected wine. This is where Pleasant Valley became the first bonded winery in America back in 1860, and where the modern Finger Lakes Riesling revolution took root, which means your Tuesday errands can include a tasting room with a lake view. The village square looks staged for a movie. White church, bandstand, shops around a green 2 blocks from the water, and Budget Travel once named it the coolest small town in America, a title locals mention with studied casualness. The wine world here is no gift shop novelty. Dr. Constantine Frank's winery up the Western Bluff is one of the most decorated in America and started the East Coast fine wine movement from these exact slopes. The Keuka Wine Trail strings a dozen more tasting rooms around the Y, and Depot Park on the waterfront runs free summer concerts where the whole village brings lawn chairs to the shore. Zillow has the typical home at $347,000, up 9.1% this year, the strongest momentum on this entire countdown. The secret is out and climbing. The honest tasting note? The village is tiny, under 1,000 people. Winter is real Finger Lakes gray. And the full hospital sit down the road, Bath's small campus 15 minutes away, the bigger Corning and Elmira systems half an hour plus. That drive is in the fine print. And a quick pour before we head west. Subscribing works like a Keuka tasting flight, costs almost nothing, and there's a new glass every single week. Now to the ballroom where the music never actually died. On February 2nd, 1959, Buddy Holly played his last show at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa, and a few hours later, the plane went down in a snowy field north of town. The world calls it the day the music died. Clear Lake respectfully disagrees because the surf never closed. The same ballroom, wooden dance floor, ocean murals, booths where Holly sat, still books live music year-round. And every February, the winter dance party fills the town with fans from around the planet, honoring that night in the warmest way possible, by dancing. Living here means that room is your local venue, and that's before the lake even enters the pitch. Clear Lake is a 3,600-acre natural glacial lake, rare treasure in farm country, with a real city beach downtown, a seawall promenade, sailing regattas, and the Lady of the Lake, a paddle wheel boat cruising all summer, while the 4th of July here runs a multi-day festival Iowans drive hours for. The town square sits 2 blocks off the water, coffee shops and supper clubs included, and the practical file is quietly elite. Mercy One North Iowa, a major regional medical center with hundreds of beds, sits 10 minutes east in Mason City, which also throws in its own bonus. Mason City is Music Man country, Meredith Wilson's hometown, with the Frank Lloyd Wright Hotel still taking guests. And the town refuses to hibernate. Every February, the frozen lake hosts Color the Wind, one of the largest winter kite festivals in the country. Giant sails dancing over the ice while thousands watch from shore with Coco. And Summer Thursdays close Main Street for live music that runs until the street lights matter. Zillow has a typical home at $341,000, up close to 5% this year. The honest snowdrift, this is northern Iowa. Winter is long, white, and windy. The lake freezes into an ice fishing village. And if that sentence made you shiver instead of smile, keep scrolling south on this list. For everyone else, the music plays on, and the hospital is 10 minutes away. City Beach deserves its own line too, a true sand swimming beach with a bathhouse right downtown, rare as rubies in the upper Midwest, and the seawall promenade fills every calm evening with strollers watching the sailboats come in. Here's a number that breaks people's brains. The Lake of the Ozarks has 1,150 miles of shoreline, which is more coastline than the entire state of California, all of it folded into the wooded hills of central Missouri. A serpent of a lake created in 1931 when Bagnell Dam backed up the Osage River, and the town that grew into its capital is Osage Beach. This is the hub of the whole operation. Marinas by the dozen, lakefront restaurants where boats outnumber cars in the parking, an outlet mall for the grandkid visits, and Haha Tonka State Park 20 minutes down the shore where the stone ruins of a 1905 castle stand on a bluff over turquoise spring water. One of the strangest and prettiest picnic spots in the Midwest. The retirement math here just turned interesting. Zillow has the typical home at $334,000, down 6.3% over the past year, the steepest discount on this entire countdown. A post-boom cooldown handing patient buyers the best entry point this lake has offered in years. And the medical answer is the real separator. Lake Regional Health System operates a full hospital with heart and cancer programs right in Osage Beach, built for a permanent population that the party headlines make people forget. Which brings up the honest wake. This lake earned a loud reputation. Summer weekends bring armadas from Kansas City and St. Louis. The famous party coves get exactly as rowdy as the cable shows suggest. And July on the main channel is not a meditation retreat. The locals' answer is geography. The lake has 90-some arms, and the quiet ones are very quiet. And from Labor Day to Memorial Day, the whole serpent belongs to the people who actually live here. The Gulf file runs deep for a lake town. Osage National carries an Arnold Palmer design on the North Shore, among a half-dozen courses within 20 minutes. And the old Bagnell Dam Strip keeps its 1950s bones, arcades, fudge shops, and a swinging bridge, the kind of place grandkids rate higher than any theme park because the nostalgia comes free with the ice cream. 1,100 miles of shore, a real hospital, and a 6% discount. The party is optional. In the summer of 1922, an 18-year-old named Ralph Samuelson strapped 2 pine boards to his feet, had his brother tow him behind a boat on Lake Pepin, and stood up. And in that moment, in front of this town, water skiing existed for the first time on planet Earth. Lake City has been the birthplace of water skiing ever since. The titles on the signs, the histories in the Marina District, and Water Ski Days each June celebrates the local kid who invented an entire sport out of stubbornness and lumber. The lake he did it on is its own marvel. Lake Pepin is the widest natural stretch of the entire Mississippi River, a 2-mile wide, 22-mile long lake that the river simply becomes for a while, framed by 500-foot bluffs that turn October into a postcard and host soaring bald eagles most of the year. The marina here is one of the largest on the whole Mississippi, sailboats included, which surprises people who thought Minnesota rivers meant barges. Across the water sits Laura Ingalls Wilder's birthplace, and the surrounding hill country runs apple orchards that make fall errands smell like pie. 15 minutes downriver in Wabasha stands the National Eagle Center, where rescued bald eagles live on public view, and winter viewing decks watch wild ones ride the river thermals by the dozen. And Frontenac State Park crowns the bluff south of town with hawk migration overlooks that birders drive states to stand on. Now, the sentence that separates this town from every lake town its size in America. The hospital in Lake City is run by Mayo. Mayo Clinic Health System operates right in town for the everyday, and the mothership itself, the actual Mayo Clinic in Rochester, one of the most famous hospitals on Earth, sits 45 minutes west. No other town on this countdown can say anything close. Zillow has the typical home at $326,000, up about 3% this year. The honest headwind? Minnesota winter needs no introduction. The lake freezes, the bluffs catch snow, and 5 months of the year, the marina sleeps. The other 7, you live where a sport was born, on the widest mile of America's river, with Mayo up the road. Maryland has exactly 1 ski resort, 1 mountain lake of any size, and 1 county that feels like it was borrowed from West Virginia and never returned. And Oakland is the seat of all of it. This is Garrett County, 2,400 feet up in the Alleghenies, where Deep Creek Lake spreads 3,900 acres through the ridges, Maryland's largest lake, built in 1925 and long since grown into the state's mountain playground. Boating and bass all summer, with resort ski runs dropping toward the water all winter. Oakland itself is the county's front porch, a genuine little mountain town with an 1884 Queen Anne Railroad station so pretty, the B&O made it a showpiece, a walkable downtown, and the Autumn Glory Festival, running since 1967, that crowns the state's best leaf season with parades and banjo contests. The surrounding country stacks the deck. Swallow Falls State Park holds Muddy Creek Falls, the tallest waterfall in Maryland, in a grove of 300-year-old hemlocks, and Amish farm markets dot the back roads with pie and produce. 4 state parks ring the lake in total, which keeps most of the shoreline green forever. The county farmers market runs strong all season in Oakland's Mountain Fresh Pavilion, and the cost sheet surprises people. Gary County property taxes and everyday prices run mountain modest, a fraction of what the same lake view would cost in the resort towns 3 states north. The altitude is the quiet amenity. Summers up here run 10 degrees cooler than Baltimore, sleeping with windows open weather in July. Winter earns its own defense here too, because this is one of the few towns on this list where the cold season is the featured attraction rather than the apology. Deep Creek's frozen coves fill with ice fishermen. Wisp runs night skiing, and the fire and snow rhythm suits retirees who wanted seasons back after decades of gray city slush. Zillow has a typical home at $287,000, essentially flat this year. And Garrett Regional Medical Center, a WVU medicine affiliate, operates right in Oakland. The honest snow gauge, this county catches real mountain winter, 100+ inches in a good year. Wisp exists for a reason, and the nearest big city amenities are 2+ hours in any direction. The trade runs cool summers, a lake in the ridges, a hospital in town, and Maryland's only chairlift 15 minutes from your porch. Stand on the waterfront in Newport, Vermont, and look north, and the lake in front of you doesn't stop at the border, it just keeps going into Canada. Lake Memphremagog runs 27 miles long and keeps 3/4 of itself in Quebec, which makes Newport one of the few American towns where the water view is international. French drifts through the marina on summer weekends, and a day trip means a passport and a cafe in Magog on the far shore. This is the Northeast Kingdom, Vermont's wildest, quietest corner, and Newport is its lake capital. A brick main street on a hill above the water, a waterfront bike path and boardwalk, salmon and smelt runs that locals plan calendars around, and Jay Peak half an hour east, whose tram, glades, and enormous indoor water park solve both the ski question and the grandkid question in one mountain. The town keeps working class Vermont texture the postcard version's lost. A farmer's market on the waterfront through summer, the Haskell Free Library 20 minutes east famously straddling the actual border with its reading room in 2 countries at once, and Lake Willoughby, the fjord-like stunner locals consider New England's most dramatic water, 40 minutes south for day trips. Prices here belong to another decade. Zillow has the typical home at $269,000, up close to 7% this year. The kingdom finally getting discovered. And North Country Hospital operates right in Newport, the full deal for a town of 4,000. The border adds its running charm. 20 minutes east in Derby Line, the Haskell Free Library was built deliberately straddling the boundary. You browse the stacks in 2 countries at once, a black line on the floor marking the seam. And each winter, the lake hosts an international winter swimming festival, where brave souls race in lanes cut through the ice while sensible people cheer from the shore with coffee. And a quick customs check before the top 8. Subscribing to this channel works like that border on the lake. Completely open, no passport required, and everything good flows south to you weekly. The Honest Ice Report. This is the kingdom. Winter is long and serious. The lake freezes thick enough for fishing derbies. Burlington is an hour and a half, and the local economy runs modest, which is exactly why the prices do too. What you're buying is an international lake, a real hospital, and the last corner of New England where the word affordable still applies without air quotes. On October 3, 1963, President Kennedy stood in the Ozark foothills and dedicated Greer's Ferry Dam before a crowd of thousands, one of his last public dedications, 6 weeks before Dallas. And the lake that rose behind that dam became one of the clearest large lakes in the American interior. Greer's Ferry runs 40,000 acres of green-blue water, so transparent that scuba clubs treat an Arkansas reservoir as a destination, ringed by sandstone bluffs and swim beaches, with Sugarloaf Mountain rising as an island in the middle, a nationally recognized trail climbing its dome for a view you have to earn by boat first. Heber Springs is the town on its shore, 7,000 people wrapped around the historic spring park, the mineral springs that named the place still bubbling under pavilions. And the second act runs below the dam. the Little Red River pours out cold and constant, which built one of the greatest trout fisheries on Earth. The world record brown trout, 40 pounds, 4 ounces, came out of this river in 1992, and fly shops and trout docks lined the banks like the holy site it is. The lake keeps sandy designated swim beaches that feel more coastal than Ozark. Winter brings eagle watching tours across the open water, and the town's calendar peaks twice: Springfest at the park and a Christmas parade small enough that the whole county fits on the sidewalk. The rhythm of a place where the cashier learns your name by the second visit. Zillow has the typical home at $257,000, up close to 4% this year, and Baptist Health operates his hospital right in town. The town adds its own texture beyond the water. An old downtown around Spring Park hosts concerts in the pavilion through summer. The Cleburne County Fair rolls in each fall, and the springs themselves, 7 of them, each one's claim to cure something different, still draw people who fill jugs on principle, tradition outliving the medicine. And Little Rock, an hour south, covers the airport runs and the specialist appointments. Close enough for a day trip, far enough that the lake stays quiet on weekdays. That balance, near enough and not too near, is half the recipe on this list. The honest ripple, summer weekends swell the lake with Little Rock traffic. The town runs quiet once the season ends, and the bigger medical world sits an hour south in the capital. What stays is Kennedy's Lake, a world record river and a mountain you can only hike by arriving in a boat. Every drop of the Mississippi River passes this town first. Bemidji sits where the young river, barely 30 miles old and still narrow enough to throw a rock across, flows into and out of Lake Bemidji, which makes this officially the first city on America's greatest river, a fact the town wears proudly, and the reason the water here feels less like scenery and more like a beginning. The Welcome Committee is 18 feet tall. Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox have stood at the lakefront since 1937, among the most photographed roadside statues in the country. Kitsch that crossed the line into beloved landmark about 60 years ago. The town underneath the legend runs deeper than tourists guess. Bemidji State University keeps 8,000 students, hockey nights, concerts, and lectures on the calendar. The lake wraps into a state park with a bog walkway that blooms wild orchids in June. The Mississippi headwaters at Itasca, where you can walk across the entire river on stepping stones, sit 40 minutes away. And this is one of America's true curling towns. National champions train here, and the club welcomes beginners who just want to learn why. The practical spine is the regional heavyweight. Sanford Bemidji Medical Center anchors healthcare for a huge slice of northern Minnesota, a genuine hub hospital in a town of 16,000. Culture punches above the latitude, too. The lakefront sculpture walk rotates public art through downtown every year, and the world-famous Concordia language villages sit on lakes just north of town. Immersion villages teaching 15 languages, which means summer here hums with global visitors and the occasional grocery store conversation in Norwegian. Zillow has a typical home at $222,000, up close to 5%. Now, the honest Winchell and respected, Bemidji regularly posts the coldest readings in the lower 48. 20 below happens every winter, and the Twin Cities are 3.5 hours south. This town asks you to mean it. In exchange, the first city on the Mississippi charges less than half the national average, hospital included. The state park across the lake runs naturalist programs year-round. Snowshoe hikes in February, loon counts in June, and Bemidji's curling club will teach any retiree the sport in an afternoon, sliding stones with strangers who won't stay strangers long. Yes, there's an Eiffel Tower, 60 feet of it in a city park, because when your town is named Paris, you either lean in or spend eternity explaining, and Paris, Tennessee leaned in decades ago. The real landmark is Wetter. Kentucky Lake spreads 160,000 acres just east of town, one of the largest man-made lakes in America, 184 miles of Tennessee River backed up behind Kentucky Dam, and Paris is its west side capital, marinas, crappie tournaments, and a fish culture so central that every April, the town throws the world's biggest fish fry, a title no one has successfully challenged since 1953. 5 tons of catfish, a week of parades and rodeo, the whole county smelling like cornmeal and celebration. Across the water lies the quiet Miracle, land between the lakes, a 170,000-acre national recreation area filling the peninsula between Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley, where a restored prairie runs actual bison and elk herds, and a retiree with a boat and a Tuesday can have shorelines to themselves that summer crowds never find. The town square holds a courthouse from 1897 and enough antique stores to lose an afternoon, and Henry County Medical Center operates right in town. Paris Landing State Park anchors the town's lake access with a marina, golf course, and a brand new lakefront lodge whose restaurant windows frame the water at sunset. And the tax math quietly helps the whole case. Tennessee taxes no wages and no Social Security, a line item that moves real monthly budgets without a single word of advice needed. Zillow has the typical home at $218,000, up 7.2% this year, the second hottest number on this countdown. West Tennessee getting found. The honest bobber, this is rural country. Nashville is 2 hours, summer is humid River Valley summer, and nightlife is the fish fry and a porch, which at $218,000 with bison across the lake reads less like a warning and more like the brochure. Time it right in April and your first week as a resident lands during the fish fry itself, 5 tons of catfish deep, which remains the single best onboarding program any town on this list offers. Every sweatshirt you owned in 1985 probably started here. Benjamin Russell opened the knitting mill in this town in 1902, and it grew into Russell Athletic, the company that put its name on half the gym clothes in America, and Alexander City was its company town for a century. When the mills wound down, the town's second act was already waiting at the edge of the city limits, 44,000 acres of it. Lake Martin is one of the South's Great Lakes, 880 miles of pine-wrapped shoreline, water clean enough that the state keeps awarding it treasure status, and a boating culture with its own landmarks, Chimney Rock, where generations have watched braver souls leap into the deep green water, and Church in the Pines, where Sunday service happens by boat. Wind Creek State Park spreads along the shore with one of the largest campgrounds in the country, the Grandkids Solution built in, and the town square downtown has been steadily refilling with restaurants and shops as lake money flows back uphill. History and music round the file. Horseshoe Bend National Military Park preserves the battlefield that ended the Creek War 20 minutes north, ranger walks included, and the Alex City Jazz Fest has brought national acts to the lake's amphitheater every June for over 3 decades. Free admission, blankets on the grass, sunset over the water. The Russell name still carries the town's medical file, Russell Medical, a full hospital right in Alexander City, cancer center included, the Mill family's most durable gift. Zillow has a typical home at $205,000, down close to 2% this year, soft in the buyer's favor, though honesty requires the asterisk. That number is town living. Actual Lake Martin waterfront trades several times higher and always has. The rest of the honest ledger runs Alabama summer and a Milltown economy still mid-reinvention, away from the shore. And a quick knot before the top 4. Subscribing to this channel works like Chimney Rock. One leap costs nothing and the water's been fine for generations. Now to the town where the college owns the calendar. Rand McNally once ran a national contest and crowned this town the friendliest small town in America, and Murray has been politely agreeing ever since. The engine underneath the friendliness is Murray State University, 10,000 students in a town of 19,000, which rewires everything a retiree's week can look like. Racer basketball nights at the CFSB Center, touring acts and lectures at the century-old Lovett Auditorium, art galleries, and the town's beloved Playhouse in the Park staging community theater year-round. A college town's calendar without a college town's cost. The water waits 15 minutes east, Kentucky Lake again, the same 160,000-acre giant from Paris's entry 2 spots ago. But Murray works its opposite shore. Ken Lake State Resort Park's marina and lodge on the western arm, and the same land between the lake's wilderness with its bison herd splitting the difference between the 2 towns. 1 lake, 2 countdown entries, 0 apologies. It's that big. The town square runs a working courthouse, coffee shops, and the kind of downtown where the university keeps storefronts honest. Murray Callaway County Hospital operates right in town with a long-trusted local reputation. 2 more Murray perks deserve the ledger. Kentucky's public universities waive tuition for residents 65 and over, meaning Murray State's classrooms are legally yours to wander for free. And the land between the lakeside runs a planetarium plus the home place, a working 1850s farm where costume interpreters plow with oxen. The best rainy Tuesday grandkid card in West Kentucky. Zillow has the typical home at $200,220, down close to 4% this year. A college town in a buyer's market, rare species. The honest syllabus: this is far western Kentucky. Nashville is 2 hours. The town breathes with the academic calendar and goes library quiet in summer. And big box shopping means a drive. What 200,000 buys is a lake 15 minutes one way, 10,000 students keeping you young the other way, and a town whose friendliness came with a trophy. The court square proves the point every December when the whole county shows up for the parade and the courthouse lighting. Small town choreography that hasn't changed in 50 years because nobody wants it to. In 1874, two men opened a summer training camp for Sunday school teachers on the wooded shore of Chautauqua Lake, and it mutated into one of the great American institutions. 9 weeks every summer of symphony, opera, theater, and morning lectures that have hosted presidents, astronauts, and Nobel winners. A gated Victorian village of gingerbread cottages where 10,000 people a day come to think, listen, and eat ice cream on porches. That's the Chautauqua Institution, the original. The one every other Chautauqua in America copied. And if you watched our warm winter video, you met its Florida echo in Defuniak Springs, the winter assembly built to mirror this exact place. Mayville is the village at the lake's north end, 3 miles from the institution's gates, the county seat with its own marina, lakeside park, and brick Main Street, which makes it the address that turns the world's most famous summer campus into your local amenity. Season tickets instead of vacation planning. The lake itself pulls year-round. Chautauqua is one of the musky capitals of the Northeast. Bass tournaments run all season, and winter brings an ice fishing culture plus the town's old tradition of carving a literal ice castle when February cooperates. 2 more cards fill the local deck. Lakeside Park in Mayville runs its own beach, lighthouse, and summer concert series steps from downtown. And 25 minutes south, Jamestown holds the Lucille Ball Museum and the National Comedy Center, a Smithsonian affiliate grade institution in the comedian's hometown, which makes the rainy day answer around here funnier than most. Zillow has the typical home at $259,000, up 3%. Which for a front porch near that institution reads like a misprint. The honest internition: the region runs Rust Belt quiet the other 43 weeks. Real lake effect snow stacks up off Erie, and the full hospital sit down the road. Westfield's small campus 10 minutes, UPMC in Jamestown about 25. That drive is in the deal. What you're buying is the source code of American lifelong learning, at a price the people attending it would never believe. And for the 9 off-season months, the institution grounds open 3 to walkers, empty Victorian streets, and a silent amphitheater all to yourself, which residents quietly consider the best season of fall. Drive down North Eufaula Avenue in April and try to keep your eyes on the road. The street runs under a cathedral of oaks between some 700 historic structures. The Cephalor District, one of the largest historic districts in Alabama. White column mansions like the 1884 Shorter Mansion parading past your windshield. Azaleas detonating pink underneath, and every spring, the Eufaula Pilgrimage, the state's oldest home tour, opens those doors to anyone with a ticket. This is the antebellum self-preserve that picture book strength, and it sits directly on a 45,000-acre lake. Lake Point State Park stretches along the northern shore with a resort lodge, marina, and golf course that make the lake a full amenity rather than a view. And the town's calendar keeps the mansions working: spring pilgrimage in April, Christmas tours in December, the historic district lit and open while the azaleas or the garlands take turns doing the decorating. Lake Eufaula, the Walter F. George Reservoir on the Chattahoochee, calls itself the big bass capital of the world, hosts national tournaments to defend the title, and wraps around the Eufaula National Wildlife Refuge, 11,000 acres where herons, alligators, and wintering waterfowl run the show, a 5-minute drive from the mansions. Lake Point State Park folds a resort lodge, golf, marina, and campground onto the shoreline just north of town, which quietly solves the "where do the grandkids stay" question every host eventually faces. And the fishing pier there stays busy year-round with folks who decided the bass can come to them, no bowl payment required. Now the number of this whole countdown has been descending toward. Zillow has the typical home at $171,000, up 2% this year, the cheapest address on this entire list, for a town where the architecture alone would justify triple that. Medical Center Barber operates right in town for the everyday. On its print, it's small, and the bigger hospital world sits about 50 minutes away in Dothan. That's the trade written plainly. The rest of the ledger runs deep South summer and a rural county economy that explains the prices without apologizing for them. $171,000, mansions, baths, and herons included. Somewhere, a coastal retiree just paid that much for a parking spot. This video opened with 4 questions every retiree asks. What does a home cost? Where's the doctor? What will I do all day? And what's the catch? And number 1 earns its spot by answering all 4 better than any town on this list. Start with the water, because it doesn't look real. Lake Keowee is 18,000 acres of blue-rich mountain water the color of a gemstone. Emerald shading to sapphire over white sand bottoms, wrapped in 300 miles of shoreline at the exact seam where South Carolina's hills become mountains. And next door sits its wilder sibling, Lake Jocassee, tucked into gorges so pristine that National Geographic once ranked the area among 50 of the world's last great places. Waterfalls pouring straight into the lake, trout in water 200 feet clear. Seneca is a town that holds the keys to both. Question 1, cost. Zillow has the typical Seneca home at $273,000, up close to 4% and going pending in around 9 days, the fastest market on this countdown, which is the market telling you everything this entry is about to. Question 2, the doctor. Prisma Health Oconee Memorial is a full hospital inside the town itself, not a drive, an address, the exact answer most beautiful lake towns can't give. Question 3, what will you do all day? And here's where Seneca separates. 15 minutes east sits Clemson, a top-tier university with everything that radiates from one. And the town has learned to hand its calendar to retirees on purpose. Lifelong learning courses through the university's institute, concerts, and 8 autumn Saturdays when Death Valley fills with 80,000 people and the whole county turns orange, whether you attend or just cook out on the water while the roar drifts across the lake. Downtown Seneca holds its own with Ramcat Alley, a brick historic strip of restaurants and music nights whose name alone wins the countdown's best trivia, and the Blue Ridge foothills start their trailheads half an hour north. South Cove County Park stretches town-owned campground and swim beach along the Keowee shore. And when the town itself feels small, downtown Greenville, one of the South's most celebrated main streets, waits 45 minutes east with its waterfall park and restaurant rows. Question 4, the catch, and there are real ones. Keowee is a Duke Energy lake-serving power plant. Levels move with operations. Waterfront property runs far past the town's typical number and always will. Growth is arriving fast enough that locals grumble about the secret being out. And Clemson football Saturdays own the roads whether you're invited or not. Weigh it all anyway. Look back down this list. Havasu's Endless Summer costs $200,000 more. Mayville's Learning Calendar comes without a hospital in town. Lake City's Mayo comes with Minnesota Winter, and Eufaula's Price comes with a 50-minute medical drive. Seneca is a town where the compromises run smallest and the water runs greenest. Emerald Lake, hospital in town, a university up the road, homes under 300,000 moving in 9 days. The 4 questions answered. That's what perfect looks like on a map. 20 towns, 1 thread of water running through all of them, and 1 pattern worth naming. The lake towns that actually work for retirement aren't the ones with the prettiest postcards. They're the ones that answer the boring questions too. The hospital, the calendar, the price, and every town on this list cleared that bar before it cleared the scenery bar. Now, the honesty that keeps this channel worth your subscription. Lakes have seasons. Northern ones freeze and southern ones swelter. Reservoir levels move. Waterfront always costs multiples of the town number. And insurance near water is its own conversation. So visit in the off-season. Ask locals what February or August honestly feels like. And verify every number fresh because prices and conditions change monthly. Tell me in the comments which of these 20 you could actually see yourself on, dock, coffee in hand, and which lake town I missed because your answers steer where this channel sails next. If this list earned its keep, subscribe. The research is always fresh and the water's always included. See you at the next one.